Celeste Hernandez. Till now, it's been a total mystery. Who wrapped her up in plastic and closed her into the trunk of a Tesla until she decomposed beyond recognition? Well, there's a very good chance that the Tesla knows. If you were with us here last night, we listed off all the ways that Teslas record everything that happens around them. And if you missed it, you can check that out on my podcast, Drop Dead Serious. But the 2023 Model Y Tesla is a virtual rolling studio and hard drive all in one. 8 cameras on the outside, 1 camera on the inside. It can tell you who closed that trunk and when that closed trunk happened. It can tell you how many doors opened and closed after that trunk opened and closed for the last time. And it can tell you where the car drove from before it was abandoned. Best case scenario, the car identifies the driver. But if the driver isn't the killer, how can police squeeze that driver for more information? Nobody knows what gets a guy to talk quite like my next guest. John Bueller is a former detective in the Modesto, California PD, and he worked one of the most infamous dismemberment cases of our time, the Laci Peterson murder. John, welcome back. I was dying to talk to you about this. What exactly could you hang over the driver of that Tesla to say, you want to go to prison facing X, Y, and Z? If not, talk.
Well, there's a whole bunch of tools that you have when you're interviewing people. And one of the big things is you have to figure out if they've got a lot to lose. And the more somebody has to lose, the more you can work on alternate plans for their future. So if with this case, it sounds to me like it's kind of a sloppy murder. You just leave it a body in a dismembered body in a trunk. Not a lot of pre-planning with that. It possibly was, but it's pretty sloppy on the tail end. So if you can get the guy identified that was last driving the car, and especially if you saw him putting the bag in the trunk of the dismembered remains and everything like that, you pull him in and you talk to him about whether or not he did it or not, or if he's an accessory after the fact, accomplice before the fact. If he was involved in the murder and the killing itself, he's looking at 25 to life just like the killer. But if he was actually just disposing of the evidence, essentially the body, then you're going to have to play with him a little bit and see if he's willing to talk. Now, for me, at least when it comes to a murder like this, I want the guy who killed the girl. That's who I'm most interested in. And I would be willing to trade somebody who was involved in the cleanup if I could get him to make the case stronger against the actual killer.
So if you threaten him with accomplice to murder, even if you don't think he is, I know that police tactics, you can say anything to get somebody to be a little bit worried about his or her position. But accomplice to murder is 25 to life. Accessory to murder is 15 to life. And unlawful disposal of human remains is only 1 year. So 1 year doesn't sound quite as scary. What else can you tag on to all of these to scare somebody?
Well, besides the 1 year for unlawful disposal of human remains, you could talk to him about disposing of evidence, tampering with evidence, and that could be a 3-year felony depending on how much he did. It might go all the way down to 6 months, depending on what he was involved in. But when it comes to these things, we never threatened people, or at least I didn't, because you have to answer for that when you go to court. So I tried to make sure that my interviews were at least palatable to the jury. No false promises, no hitting him in the head with a phone book or anything like that, but trying to present him with a couple of options, and the best option is save yourself, give us what we need to make our case stronger, and then maybe we can work a deal where you become a witness instead of a co-responsible. We did that on several cases, and you ended up letting a guy go sometimes for a crime that he was involved in, but for the greater good, to get a solid sentence and a good conviction on the guy that killed him, sometimes that's the way to go.
Well, I own this same Tesla, and I literally understand how much of my privacy I've given up having this Tesla and having the luxury of having Sentry mode, protect, my car for me, and basically scare people off if they even walk near it. All those things come with a price. And if they're able to get the guy or girl who closed that trunk for the last time on Celeste and then got into the driver's side, and if the other passenger side door also opened, that's registered, and they're able to find a couple of people, you really do have something on them. They're recorded potentially on camera doing this. Is there an obstruction of justice here as well?
Well, only if they would keep information from you that they had. You could try and get a charge like that. But charges like that are kind of lightweight, and it depends on the prosecutor, and it also depends on the person's prior criminal history. If they've been in trouble a lot and they've been arrested a lot, well, then maybe you could work on that, especially if they're on parole. The parole officers and parole agents have a lot of latitude and a lot of muscle to use over somebody who's out in public on parole. So we have that. But generally, in a case like this, the car is going to be a huge piece of evidence. And even though they say that David is not a person of interest, he might be. They're just keeping it close to the vest.
Well, I wouldn't serve 15 years to protect somebody if he asked me to clean up a crime. That's just me, though. John Bueller, it's good to have you. Thanks for this.